Welcome to the GovDiscovery AI podcast with Mike Shanley, your source for actionable insight into government markets and foreign policy. GovDiscovery AI leverages a decade of experience winning federal funding to deliver intel to sales, proposal, and capture teams working in defense and civilian markets. Now here's your host, Mike Shanley.
Hello and welcome to the GovDiscovery AI podcast. I'm your host, Mike Shanley. Excited to have Jim Carroll, CEO of the Professional Services Council. I'd like to start out by saying that we are longtime members of PSC. Highly recommended it to any services contractor out there that's either established or new and looking to get into the federal government contracting space, whether it's the defense market or any of the other civilian markets. So definitely reach out to Jim and his team and connect with them and check out their upcoming events. Next event we got on the calendar is the Defense Conference, which will be in October. So be sure to check that out. We'll have links in the show notes. Jim, great to have you on the show. Really excited to get your insight on the federal market.
So, well, first off, Mike, I feel like I hate to start like this. I feel like I need to correct you, but I need to correct you on one thing. And you said you've been a long-time member. You've been a long-term partner. And that's the way that we view, the 400 plus groups that partner with us to advance their mission. And, obviously it's a great honor to have you as a partner. We're also, thrilled to be able to represent hundreds of billions of dollars of companies, that do revenue, hundreds of thousands of employees across the federal government. And so being able to partner with them to advance their mission is, what we try to do. So I don't like the word membership. It is an exclusive club, but it's the right club to advance the mission. So hope you will accept my correction right off the bat.
Very open to feedback. That sounds great, Jim. So let's, I want a big picture check in from you, but then I think we got some interesting stories from you on how you're making sure that the partners' voices are heard both on the Hill as well as in the White House. But first question, big picture, how would you characterize the current state of the federal contracting market?
That is a really good question. And the current state, there is definitely some uncertainty right now. There have been a lot of changes this year. We've seen it across the board, which happens every 4 years, maybe every 8 years, is you see a change. And we're certainly feeling that now. And the folks that we work with, the companies that are part of PSC, are feeling it. They see the uncertainty. And that's, I think, what they're looking for from us is some certainty. What is the future going to look like? There are also companies that are looking at this in the right view of this also presents opportunities. How can we grow our company? How can we do more business with some of the changes that we see taking place? We, the public, you can read it in the newspaper, you can hear it on your show, Mike, that how do we take advantage of this? How is this an opportunity for us to move into spaces where we have traditionally not been involved? And so there's certainly a little bit of fear, a little bit of uncertainty, but I think we're beginning to see a little bit of optimism that things are settling down and there's potential here.
Well, let's get right into PSC's role in the industry. What is the role of PSC in helping industry navigate these shifting federal priorities and the opportunities? And would love to hear about the work you and your team are doing, actually getting partners, the members directly engaged on the Hill and with the White House.
Yes, so for ease of conversation, we'll say members. We'll fall back into the membership word. One of the things that we're doing now is instead of PSC going up for one-on-one meetings, is we are bringing our members with us. We're bringing the CEOs. We're bringing the top of these companies in to meet with the decision makers. They can speak that language directly about what are the stories, what are the impacts for their companies, for their employees, how can we make the government work better, more efficiently, get to the outcomes that the administration wants. And so we're doing that. Yesterday, I brought a group of 12 member companies, 12 of our partners from some of the smallest companies that do business with the government to an employee-owned company to some of the largest, biggest defense contractors, biggest names that you would expect. We had a meeting with about 8 White House officials, And it was wonderful. It was an open dialogue. And that was my biggest takeaway. I mean, certainly there were conversations about contracting, about the new FAR, about trends and things like that. And happy to sort of talk a little bit about that. But really, the biggest takeaway from me and was the willingness of the White House to listen, wanting to hear what things were going right, where they need to make some improvements, and what are the common problems that would move, especially some of the regulatory requirements or some of the proposals that actually are counter to achieving the goals that the White House wants. And so that was the first of many meetings at the White House. We've already had meetings at some of the departments and agencies. I've been on the Hill. I go back to have members of Congress meetings tomorrow. I think I'm gonna keep on my day straight. Tomorrow, we're going into one of the major cabinet officials and meeting with the department to set up the next member-driven meeting that we can facilitate. So I think it's, being that conduit between the government and key decision makers on the Hill and the administration and the member companies, the partners, the foreign, that we work with, is bringing them together and having them sit at the table, take the coat off. I do wear a tie for my official meetings, like you do, but take
This is
the
a
coat
laid
off.
back podcast, Jim. So there's,
Yeah.
you're very much okay with the dress code right now.
Yeah, I dressed for the occasion, and tomorrow I'll have a tie on when we're going up to the Hill. But it's to be that conduit of information, to be able to flow together. At the end of the day, when it's necessary for an association sometimes to be the leading voice, that's fine, that's great, I understand that. But in an ideal world, we're developing relationships so that if we're going up to meet with the Senate Armed Services Committee, there's a particular issue, that we've established that relationship in being able to do that. So, a lot of important things. Today is June 24th, and we, have plans for June 25th, June 26th, you name it, we're moving. And so,
During these meetings on the Hill at the White House, I'm curious, what are the messages you're hearing, you feel that being in the meetings are really resonating? I think that's something that you'd only pick up during those in-person conversations. Is there certain messages from industry that these contractors should know on the efficiency line, on the innovation line, that really seem to resonate with the Hill or the White House? And I'm also curious, is there a difference between those meetings? Is there one type of priority or message that really resonates more with Congress as opposed to with the administration?
you can look at what's happening and what has unfolded in the world, and not only over the weekend, but in the last few months. I would say from the administration, there's a lot of focus right now on national security. Shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that there's talk about, how do we support the warfighter? How do we support Department of Defense? And and with that, a subset of that is border security. And so we're actually, we're working on a border security day up on Capitol Hill. We will leak it to you first as we finalize that. We will leak you the early version of that, but we're having an event on Capitol Hill just on the border security because we're hearing that subset on the Hill. But national security right now, there was a lot of the conversations, yesterday, and there was recognition yesterday that the work of our members was directly involved in, the activities that Department of Defense has carried out in the last few weeks. There's recognition that we, the industry, actually have the latest technology. We're able to be fluid. We're able to respond very quickly and develop something externally, that is not capable of a government to be able to do internally. And so it was really satisfying to hear that they want the relationship with contractors, suppliers, developers. They want research. They understand the value in it and what we bring to the table. So the bottom line, great message was they want there to be a partnership, and we want to facilitate it.
And that's what I'm hearing regularly in conversations with government, is that they see the innovation coming from industry, coming from the contractors, and they're very open to that. And you touched on the defense market. Obviously, we focus on within national security, really on the DoD business development market. So I want to ask directly, just to make sure we didn't miss anything, what are some of those trends you're seeing that are shaping the defense industrial base and the defense contracting market right now?
One of the things that I think came up in the first conversations was cybersecurity. What are we doing to secure the space to make sure in the defense and aerospace, closely related, but slightly divergent, is making sure that there is sufficient cybersecurity controls in place, that if there's latest and greatest technology, whether it's custom or on the off the shelf, that what can the suppliers bring to these departments, especially DoD, with the right now, right here, this is a solution that will help do this. Obviously, there's a lot going on securing the cloud, making sure, again, that part is there. The other, which I think will resonate well with you, is AI. What is the future of AI? And Mike, as you know, I'm a recovering lawyer, and having seen AI in the legal space, when AI first really sort of hit the market for lawyers and law firms a couple of years ago, the first announcement from the law firm was, you may not use AI, period, full stop. Don't touch it, don't look at it, don't even say the acronym AI. That quickly realized that was not realistic and not working, and it's also not efficient. And so the next step, the next iteration of that, well, if you're going to use AI, triple check, double check everything, that you're putting out there, that some of the work, some of the information that you're getting off AI might not be 100% accurate. And so double check it and be candid with clients that you're using it. The same is true, I think, for the government, is that it is an amazing tool and can really be beneficial. I would like to think, Mike, that you probably use it every day. I think a lot of people here are using it either personally or professionally very frequently. But it's evolving. It's at light speed about how fast it's going on. We just did a survey with our members, and with 400 member companies, 400 partners, as I said. One of the things that we were talking about this morning is using AI to help interpret, some of the responses that we got back on our surveys. The government is aware of it. They understand the role of AI and how it can be properly harnessed and used. And so what's also, I think, really fascinating for me is the thinking that goes on with how do we use AI in the defense space, the border security space, and how can it be used against us, and how can our companies help us with that. And so I don't know that I'll ever be able to fully understand all the bits and dots and bits and pieces of AI, but it's here and it's here to stay. So how do we work with it? How do we harness it? And the companies that we have, again, some of the largest AI and data storage companies that do business with the government, they're eager to help.
And so we use human in the loop AI, as you mentioned with PSC. You're analyzing it not to replace the human intelligence, but to accentuate and to really get more value out of those human hours. One analogy, and I think I'm going to reach the extent of my mythological academic background here, but it's valuable for anyone talking to the Department of Defense. The analogy we hear them using is the centaur versus the minotaur.
Right.
And is the human the head with the horse body? Is the human still leading the AI, or is the AI leading the body of the human? And that's I share one just for conversation with government. It's good to use their language and speak the way your customer's speaking about a problem. But I think as long as it's that the human leading it and it's the AI is enhancing the value of each hour of the human work, that's where it's really going to add a lot of value.
Yeah, you're too young to remember the original Terminator movie, but we do have to make sure that this is human led, not computer led, that we're working with. But it's phenomenal, and it's going to create efficiencies and really be able to also in the text, not only in the text-based and finance, but also we're seeing some advancement. I had some conversations at HHS in terms of the use of AI to help with getting better drugs on the market faster. Instead of going through, and you've seen some of the announcements from the FDA about moving, farther and farther away from animal testing. You can do it without putting animals through that, but you can also do it faster and efficiently with AI. And the other, the statement, that Marty McRae, the head of the FDA, put out was it's also more accurate. So that's pretty, startling about how so many different sectors are really going to be impacted by AI.
On that note, and you already touched on this again earlier, but being the head of let's say, one of the premier contracting membership associations for the federal government, you get to hear from both the large primes, the small businesses, the mid-tier companies. What are you hearing from them, Jim, in your conversations about what are those big challenges? And again, you've touched on a few already, but also what are the opportunities that they're seeing in this market?
Yeah, a lot of the challenges are the same or very similar. We talked a little bit about this, but the uncertainty, the contract cancellations or minimizing really at the drop of a hat are very concerning, for small, medium, or large size companies. For the smaller companies that are doing business, it's, how do we make sure, that some of the uncertainty for them doesn't go away. The large companies want to make sure that there is a level playing field, that they all have the opportunity to compete. One of the other challenges that they are, this came up really repeatedly yesterday. Yesterday we had small, medium, large, as I said, and even an ESOP, employee stock-owned company. Was the idea that we're facing different challenges from different departments. So if we're working in the DoD space, there might be certain challenges related to the FAR. You take that over to DOT. Even with GSA now trying to take a larger space and trying to take all of the contracts, which we can talk about, is that going to work or not? But there's different requirements at different departments for really the exact same technology, solutions, services that they're trying to provide, and how do we create some harmony there? And so some of that comes down to really clear requests from the government. What are they actually asking for? What do they want? As it seems that we're moving closer and closer to outcome-based solutions, it's being able to work together to figure out what that means, is to make sure that there's a clear understanding, for that. And so some of the challenges are the same and some are slightly different. And that's really what we want to be part of, as some of these new political appointees and people who are being confirmed are getting settled in, is they're facing a learning curve. We want them to come to us for assistance. That was the purpose of some of the meeting yesterday at the White House. It wasn't to solve every problem, but to say we can be a resource and let us go through that learning curve together.
And yeah, so you talked a little bit about this transition year with the new administration coming in. What if we look 12, 24 months down the road? So after the start of FY26 fiscal year, what are some of those opportunities you're seeing then that maybe some of the partners can be thinking about and positioning for now? I would say probably from October on, so the start of FY26.
Boy, if I could predict that, I wouldn't be sitting in as honored as I am to be leading PSC.
I saved all the easy questions for you, Jim, just so you know. Yeah.
Maybe I should let you go first. What is the world going to look like in 12 to 24 months, right? Obviously, things are happening quickly. What I predict, first off, is that everyone is going to slow down a bit on the government side, let some of the changes that they have already announced settle in place, maybe tweak them back a bit to restore some common sense on how we do this. I do think some of the cuts that have been made will probably remain in place. Some of the cuts to USAID, MMC, MCC will probably stick. I think that there's so much water under the bridge on those, both privately within the government and publicly facing, that they won't necessarily reappear in its old form, but we'll see them popping up in other places. And I think back to the time, and as Mike, as you know, we've talked about this. I just finished 3 different White House terms. I spent 6 years for President Bush, all 4 years at President Trump's first term in the White House, and then just finished up at the White House. What we're seeing is a recognition now, and I can sort of sense it, especially even in my visit yesterday, back to the White House, that there's time now to slow down and see what are the changes that we have made, which ones are working, which ones need to be retweaked. So I think we'll continue to head down that path of that focus. I think we're going to continue to see an increased emphasis on national security under the umbrella of DOD and DHS. I think that the president got elected arguably on some of those issues, and I think he's going to remain focused on those. And so for right now, that's part of how we're gearing ourselves and our members, our partners, PSC, is to being able to be adaptable. The conversations about supporting the warfighter are real. And that's what I think the best way we can serve our partners, our member companies within PSC, is getting them in that room, especially now that the excitement of the first 3 months are settling down and people want to achieve these results. Is making sure we get a secure supply chain, making sure that we are actually helping them reduce spending while actually producing better, more efficient outcomes. And so I think that we're really I'm not pessimistic about next year from an industry perspective. One of the reasons that the government, whether it's federal, state, local, or even other companies who hire contractors to come in is because they recognize the ability to be specialized experts in an area, provide a solution, and if necessary, end the contract and leave. And that's what we've always been able to do. PSC has been here for 50 years working with these companies that are in this space, and we're going to continue to do that. We're growing. More members are coming every day. We're trying to support them every single day. Like the last thing, and again, Mike, I want to get your thoughts on this. One of the things that we're hearing from companies is what are we hearing on cryptocurrency, the fintech space? And so we're expanding into that now because some of my government colleagues have asked us about that, but also some of our companies that are on the fringe of it, I'll say, are asking about fintech and crypto. And so we're expanding in that world right now, but I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
We may have an upcoming episode on that specifically, Jim.
Wow.
Yes, there's one of our contacts we've been having conversations with is working in that space, and one of the conversation there is more, I think, a conversation within that community is, are we aiming towards institutionalizing this with stable coins and getting into treasury? But that is not in line with the roots of crypto, which was maybe more anti-establishment or decentralizing the financial system. So I think that now that they have a lot of support both on the Hill and in the White House, I think that's a conversation, and with SEC as well. The conversation is where will that go? And there's always presidential actions and a lot of other actions that can easily be reversed by another administration. So I think a value is always in the legislation and what is Congress actually going to pass, which is usually much more difficult to change if a different administration with a different crypto policy comes in.
Or there's a change in power on Capitol Hill. But yeah, there's 3 or 4 key bills that are pending right now. We're working through those, talking to the companies that are part of PSC and helping that. It's interesting that stable coin came up yesterday in a conversation. I guess, how many years ago did we first start talking about crypto? Was it 8, 9? Is that about 8 years ago?
Yeah, I think it's when Bitcoin started hitting a couple thousand bucks and Coinbase came on the scene. That's when it seemed to hit the mainstream conversation.
But I was thinking yesterday, last night after my meeting, and the word stable coin came up. That has only been around, maybe 12 months, 18 months at the absolute most, was that concept of stable coin. And that came up yesterday. So again, this world is changing so fast. One of the due outs from our meeting yesterday is a meeting up at the SEC that's being set up. And so I think that, again, it's recognition that the world is changing, and what our children and grandchildren will inherit might look a little different than the world we're operating in now. On the DOT side, a lot of our companies are supporting the tech that supports AV. And, one of the conversations yesterday was on unmanned submarines. So not just, unmanned things that are in the air, such as gyrocopters, such as some of the other things that are being used even in the war space of the past weekend. But what else is coming? What else, and so I think that it was fascinating. I'll be candid with you. The amount of unmanned submarine operations that are taking place was really caught me off guard. I didn't realize the extent to which unmanned underwater vehicles are being used right now.
And that's where, with all the intel, with the business development intel that we provide to clients, again, primarily on the defense market, is really focused on keeping them aligned with that. But Jim, that's where PSC is so important, is to making sure that the members are part of those conversations, because I don't know. Also, I asked you the question. I don't know what's going to happen in 12 months and 24 months. I have guesses. I'm probably going to be wrong on a good amount of it. But what I think I'm right about is the best way to stay involved in part of the conversation is to have your proper AI system tracking the updates, and then to really maximize your time with the human relationships and engaging with the decision makers.
And that's why we're trying to, bring our companies in with us. There's little value for having me as the only person there. We've got meetings in every department set up. We're moving very quickly to try to get established and recognized for being the industry leader that we are. And so we're super excited to have new companies joining and partnering with us every day and seeing the value that we bring.
Before I let you go, Jim, I got to talk about acquisition. Can we get an update on where things are standing from your perspective in terms of acquisition reform, and noting too that a lot of the things PSC and its members have been talking about, not just for months, but for years and for administrations. So I'm interested in your, again, June 24th, 2025, where do things stand for federal acquisition reform at this point?
It's coming. And there was talk about it yesterday. What does FAR 2.0 look like? Is it really achieved the desired outcome? There is some concern that what has been proposed, it's in spirit, it's in the right direction, but the FAR is so complicated and you get so many, sort of riders to it when you're doing business with DOD or some other department, that the FAR could be rewritten to be this thick instead of about this thick now. But if DOD has regulations, on top of it to do business with them, that really sort of throws away any value of FAR 2.0. So it's sort of, how do we actually get that desired outcome? Some of the challenges with FAR 1.0 and even 2.0 is recognition that so many of the companies that we work with are the largest in the world. And there's some global requirements with FAR 2.0 that don't recognize the nature and scope of some of our largest companies and how they do business. And so making sure that some of the burdens, if you will, of FAR 2.0 don't become unnecessary, unworkable, or to the disadvantage of some companies. And so, that's the big issue I think that we're facing in a nutshell, without going too deep, is making sure the FAR 2.0 does the desired thing of making sure that everyone starts out from the same place. No one is disadvantaged because of certain exceptions or things like that. Making sure that our small businesses have the ability to compete and do the work that they want, without meaning we don't do business with, large primes anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I've got a vested interest. We have 3 children, Mike. One of my kids works for a government services provider. This is a personal mission for me as well.
That's always good to know where the passion and the dedication comes from, Jim, and that probably is one of the strongest fountains of passion there for work. So, Jim, as we wrap up here, we just like to end with a so what. So, from this conversation, what's the most important takeaway that you want to leave our audience with?
That we're working on this legislation. We're working on making contacts every day. We're grateful for the SPEED Act that is just come out, and we're putting comments on that, put that out, and we are going to work hard, both sides of the aisle, both chambers of Congress, to make sure that that is something that we can support. I don't know if you all talked about previously, we've done reverse industry days in the past. We did a NASA one back in the spring that was so successful, NASA called us and said, we want another one. And so in the heat of August, we are going down to Florida to NASA's offices down there. And we'll be having another reverse industry day at NASA's request there. We're also sponsoring those and be announcing. And again, Mike, we'll leak it to you first in control.
Excellent. And we'll share it to our large LinkedIn following, Jim. So follow me on LinkedIn, or better yet, join PSC as a member, especially if you're in the aerospace market, to get involved in that reverse industry day.
And we'll see if we don't see them at our border event on the Hill, they reach out to us for that. We'll certainly see everyone at the defense contract. We're going to have some big names coming for that.
Yeah, and I'll absolutely be there in October at the defense conference. I also say that keep the Vision Forecast Conference in December on your calendars. I'm on the Vision Forecasting team for DoD's teams for IT cyber, as well as for defense services. So we're hard at work preparing the 2026 forecast there. And that should, as always, be a very important event for all the BD and growth leads.
Yeah, and that kicks off December 1st, which will be here sooner, than later. Our defense contract is the end of October. And, for companies that want to be part of that, we're building that now. And there's going to be some, historically it always has been, and it's going to continue to be the decision makers from the government, from DOD in this space. And so, Mike, I'm looking forward to seeing you in person there.
Absolutely, Jim. And for those who aren't members, you can still attend those. That can be a great way just to test out the value, and I think you'll be very impressed with that. So, Jim, always great talking with you, and appreciate the great work you and your team are doing. We're looking forward to continuing to be members for a long time, and we'll probably have you hopefully back on the show down the road to keep us updated on what's going on in the federal contracting market.
We'd love to have you as a partner, as well as the 400 other companies and look forward to speaking to you again real soon, and reach out always to you or the members if there's anything we can do.
Thanks so much for your time, Jim. Really appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the GovDiscovery AI podcast with Mike Shanley. GovDiscovery AI leverages our team's decade of experience winning federal funding to deliver federal growth intel to sales, proposal, and capture teams working in defense and civilian markets. Each market intel report is delivered by federal growth experts leveraging our proprietary deep data discovery process. If you enjoyed today's show, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and connect with GovDiscovery AI and Mike Shanley on LinkedIn, or learn more at govdiscoveryai.com.